you have to realize, Singapore, okay, let's not get it twisted. Singapore is smaller than Jamaica. Let me repeat that. Singapore is a smaller island. Singapore is an island, yeah, in Asia. Just like how you have Jamaica in the Caribbean or the West Indies, you have Singapore in Asia, okay? The reason why I put Singapore is that Singapore, I remember someone told me, one of the old heads told me that some delegates from Singapore once came to Jamaica to consult Jamaica because Jamaica's economy was booming way back in the day. I think just after so-called independence, when we had that fake independence that we celebrate, Jamaica's economy was booming, and it was one of the fastest growing economy way back then. And the Singaporeans, who were poverty poor and struggling, tiny island over in Asia, they came over to Jamaica to study and see how we managed to turn our economy around. And they took the blueprint, went back to Singapore, okay? And the effects of that is this: 794.1 billion, whilst Jamaica is still here on 37.2 billion. No, come on, brother. And I know this is going to go over $1 trillion. You understand me? It's another, 210 or whatever billion before them hit the 3 million mark, the trillion mark. While Jamaica is still here, and chances are we're going to be sliding back with this figure rather than going forwards. But it is what it is. People like to forecast that they're going to do better, but the reality normally turns out that they do worse, not better. But hey, you can forecast anything and make it look pretty until the reality sets in. So this is why I put these countries here, because they have some type of relationship or within the vicinity of Jamaica, or something to do in Jamaica in that respect. Of course, they're over in Europe, but Jamaica have a relationship with the UK. Jamaica have a relationship with Canada and the USA. A lot of people immigrated there. Chinese community is strong in Jamaica. Singapore have always, come to Jamaica to consult Jamaica on how to turn their economy around. And my goodness, 794 billion.1. I can't stop talking about it compared to us stuck on some 37.2. And before you say, oh, but Singapore is smaller than Jamaica. Singapore is an island. It's smaller than Jamaica. I'm not going like a scratch CD, but I have to rivet it in, because people need to realize, say, boy, we need to do better. The other thing I want to quickly do, okay, is to put these in a chart just to show you what it looks like. So remember these values. Right now we're interested in Andrew Holness's salary and Lee Hsien Loong's salary, as well as what their respective ratio is. So for in terms of Andrew Holness' salary, given the GDP of 37.2 billion, the ratio we're looking at is 451.6. And again, in terms of Lee Hsien Loong's salary, and this is in US dollars, by the way, because as I said to you, when you're comparing money and currency and business and GDP and all this type of stuff, the standard that everybody uses around the world is US currency, okay? So always bear that in mind. They don't care about in pounds, they don't care about in Jamaican dollars. It's always going to be in US dollars. So when you look at Lee Hsien Loong's salary, you're seeing here he's on 1.6 million basically US dollars, which is high. But then he's got a GDP of 794.1 billion for that country of Singapore. Bear in mind as well that Singapore is 15 and a half times smaller, or should I say Jamaica is 15 and a half times bigger than Singapore. But at the same time, Singapore's population is just over double the amount of Jamaica's population. If we're going to say Jamaica's population is about 3 million, then Singapore's is about I think it's about 6 or 5 point something, almost 6. So that's what I'm talking about. So it's almost double. So given those numbers, you see that, per capita for the ratio we're looking at is 451.6 for Andrew Holness in terms of his income to GDP ratio per capita. And then for Lee Hsien Loong, that's the amount he's on for his salary a year. and that's the GDP of 794.1 billion per capita for for that country, and that's the ratio of over 1,000%, as you can see here. Now, what I'm going to do is, if I jump over to here, because I did prepare another chart to reflect these figures, so I'll pull those figures over here, and as you can see, Singapore is in the red, Jamaica is in the green, and obviously salary in US dollars. So that's Lee Hsien Loong's here salary, and that's Jamaica Prime Minister Andrew Holness's salary, and of course the ratio 451.6 and over 1,000%, and obviously the GDP is 794.1 billion as opposed to 37.2 billion, and those are the figures you can confirm that's here. So you can see it there, 451.6 ratio as opposed to over 1,000 in terms of the ratio, 1,203.9, which you should see the 1,203.9 there, and whatever. So without going too much over it, what I'm going to now do is plug this figure in here. Okay, so because we're working in US dollars and not Jamaican Jamaican dollars, which will be the equivalent of 9.1 million for Andrew Holness's salary and 251.5 million Jamaican dollars respectively for Lee Hsien Loong, we're just going to say, okay, let's plug in the number. Because you remember, Andrew said back in 2021 where he was getting this. Apparently in 2024 he's still on this, because in the previous video, the full video over an hour and a half, you will see that he was on this. Then he's supposed to get, he was in this. Then he was supposed to get this in 2022, then this in 23, and this in 2024. So let's suppose now we plug this figure in here. So before we plug the figure in, just another quick recap. Remember these ratios, okay? This is not going to change. That's the GDP. That's not going to change for 2024. But the ratio is going to change because it's dependent on the salary, okay? And the GDP per capita ratio. So this will change and this will change in respect to the chart and how it shares. So you can see right now in red, Singapore has got the lion's share in terms of ratio and obviously, income. GDP, of course, they're almost pushing Jamaica completely off the bar right there. So let me just go over here now and plug in this salary. So let's assume that, or should I say, let's suppose that Andrew Holness did take this salary of 142,916 in 2022. You can look the equivalent up in Jamaican dollars. So I just want to copy this figure here, and then I'm going to scroll back up here quickly. I'm going to plug that in. So as you can see, remember this figure 451 and whatever, and the ratio, and 1,203.9 ratio. Okay, so let's plug this figure in. If you notice, once I paste that figure in, this jumped from 451 ratio to over 1,099. So let's go back and see how the bar reflects that. You can see the bar chart is almost half. So what's happened is Jamaica is now fighting back and pushing. Now this is not a good sign, because what this is saying is, even though Jamaica is 15.5 times larger than Singapore, and Singapore's population is about double Jamaica's population in terms of, in that respect, and of course it means per capita more people in Singapore is contributing to the GDP of the country. What I'm interested in is per capita for each country. Is Jamaica Prime Minister taking too much salary for a country of its size and population of its size? Okay, just like how when you hear people talk about crime per capita, and you hear Jamaica is one of the highest, got the highest crime rate in the world per capita. That's different from saying Jamaica have the highest crime rate in the world. But per capita, Jamaica has the highest crime rate in the world. Because what they're saying is, for such a small country with such a small population, far more crimes in terms of killing is going on there than any other country in the world. And that's crazy. So this is the same thing here, but in terms of, salary that is taken and the GDP that they're getting, or they have, and then the ratio. So you can see it's almost half already. And this is if Andrew Holness had taken this salary here in 2022 that he was scheduled. Now, if we jump to this one and say, okay, instead he took in 2023, he took the 161, 1,996. And again, as I say to you, you can plug these figures in and go on Google and look up the exchange rate, and you see that it's accurate in terms of the schedule. If you want to see more detail about that part, go into the my previous video, the full video. You will see on the thumbnail it says full video. Let's plug that figure in here now. So as you see, it's just over 1,099%. So now that we've plugged this figure in, you see it's jumped up to, it's actually more than Singapore's ratio in terms of Lee Hsien Loong's salary. So he's jumped, and this is just the second tier, and he's jumped past him already. How does that look on the bar chart? Boom. You see, it's pushing it. So it's pulled the figures in, and you can see it's pushing it. So the salary is now jumped up to 161,696. And now is also the ratio in terms of the GDP, because the GDP is going to remain the same, isn't it? And his in red, this is going to remain the same. The only thing that's changing is this, because that's the figure we're changing. So that tells me that if Andrew Holness have taken the second and third increase in salary that was scheduled, this would be the income to GDP ratio, which tells you that for such a small country with the population, that's way too much in terms of a salary. Even though you might say, well, Lee Hsien Loong is on 1.6 million US dollars in terms of salary, blah blah blah. But then he might be on 1.6 million, and he might only be on 161,696. But again, as I say, it's per capita. For this is a smaller country, but their GDP, I mean, how many times can 37 go into 794? That's what you have to look at. Who is the more productive here? So if a prime minister or a leader or a president or whatever want to justify their salary, you have to look at their GDP. You have to look at unemployment rate. You have to look at all the industries and say, well, okay, if you're taking such a high salary, what are you doing for the country in return? What is justifying the salary? And Singapore, everybody talks about Singapore. You go on Google up all the pictures and videos of Singapore and see, oh, Singapore looks like Dubai. Do you understand me? So even though he's taking a very high salary, Lee Hsien Loong, at the end of the day, mate, he's doing a good job for his country. So you can't too skinny nose about the fact that he's taking such a high salary, because they're putting in the work over there. You can see the fruits of the labor. And anybody from Jamaica who have been to Singapore will attest to what I'm saying. But poor little Jamaica, with all the crime rate, water lock off all the time, electricity lock off all the time, crime rate very high, food expensive. Jamaica have got multiple myriads of problems happening all at once. I'm surprised that Jamaica hasn't turned into Haiti, because there's too much going on and people just sit there and just take it. But so that's not a very good ratio for Jamaica. No, we're not done yet. One last one. Let's plug in the final tier. So as you know, in 1st of April, going last month, 1st of April in 2024, if Andrew Holness, again like in 2022 and 2023, if he had followed the scheduled salary increases, which there was a big uproar about last year, and taken this amount of in terms of his salary, which was due last month, if he's been taking this, let's plug that in and see where that leads us. So where is he? There he is, Andrew Holness. So we're going to plug this in now. 1,244.4% ratio. So let's plug in the last tier if he did take this. 182,945. This jumps up again to 1,407.9% ratio in terms of his income against the GDP, and that's crazy. So how does that reflect on the bar chart? Bang, pushes it up again. So what I'm trying to show you is the $182,945 $1,000 US dollars. You can see that now he has the lion's share, literally pushing back the other way, and this is a bad sign. This is probably why Andrew Holness agreed to retain his $58,000 in salary, which is equivalent to 9.1 million pounds, dollars, sorry, Jamaican dollars and thereabouts, because the ratio is way too high. And this is why I say, let me just jump back and put the figures back to how it was. So if I scroll back down here, you know, and just plug back the current figure that he's on right now, which is this, what it shows you is that, you know, where are we? Let me go back up and find him again. There he is. Plug this figure back up. You can see 1,407.9% ratio. So we're going to plug this figure back in. See, it goes back down to 451.6% on a 58,679 dollars American dollar salary, which is equivalent to 9.169 whatever Jamaican dollars, which is equivalent to 46,841 pounds, because I had to manually look these number up. And as I said to you in my previous video, I could have written a macro which automatically convert this, but it would take me a long time. I'll have to pull data in from type of source, which changes on a regular basis. And just for the video, I just thought, you know what, I can always just look at the current, sort of exchange rate and plug it in there, which takes me a couple of minutes to do. So I just did it that way. So it's back down to 451.6 where we were. Salary is now back to the existing amount he claims he's on since 2021, which is 58,679 in terms of his US dollar. The GDP hasn't changed because that's not what this is about. So even though this ratio now looks like this, what I'm saying to you is, it still shows that even this ratio is still too high for a country, given the GDP that is pushing out, the size of the country, and per capita what each person is contributing to the GDP. Okay, and that's all I wanted to say for this video, so keep it locked.